And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang's in New Mexico.
John, you know we take requests at johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com, so let me get these right out of the way. Our favorite man at the Port of Oakland, Al, needs to hear a little Shangy, so let's get that for him. He wants
Absolutely.
And of course,
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
He was actually tracking us, and he says he hasn't heard that drop since Friday. So we're doing our best here. And Caesar writes in at johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com, and he needs a little Queen Laura in his life.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
When we started the show, did I say you were in Culver City?
I don't even know. I think you might have, but I think that's just muscle memory.
I think so. For a long time, I was still doing the COVID Open, even after it ended.
For a long time, you were doing the Morongo Open after that ended.
What are you going to do?
If you'd like to sponsor our studio, contact our sales department.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, gas prices in the state of California are much, much higher than in the rest of the nation. And Randy, according to the new Ashley Zavala report, those prices could be going up even more.
We're looking at multiple dollar increases over the next 2 years because of the planned closure now of 2 different refineries that are responsible for 20% of the gasoline. By the way, Johnny, I am in New Mexico, and gas is $2.69 here.
Okay, so it's cheap in New Mexico, it's cheap in Arizona, it's cheap in Nevada, it's cheap all over the place. It's cheaper in Hawaii than it is here. And Newsom said it's because the oil companies are colluding against us, not because of his idiotic policies.
Yep. For more on the hearing that happened in the California legislature with Gavin's appointees to his several commissions that are trying to save the state. And here's KCRA 3.
A live look over the state capitol right now, where Governor Gavin Newsom's administration was in the hot seat today as California is set to lose 2 oil refineries within the next year. Those closures will come after the governor and his administration pushed and successfully passed new regulations on the oil industry within the last few years.
2 different special sessions, and what did we get out of it except more expensive gasoline?
You notice the more time they spend working on this, the worse it gets. What does that tell you about their solutions?
If you look at Gavin Newsom, just focused on outcomes, not on what he has spent money on, he has nothing to show for in 6 years of being the governor.
Nope.
Lawmakers are now worried how this is going to impact California drivers and their cost of living. KCRA 3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala takes a closer look at what could be next.
Governor Gavin Newsom's top administration officials in the hot seat today over California's situation with oil refiners and potential rising gas prices. Democratic lawmakers signaling they may be losing trust with some of these agencies.
You don't say.
I know that what climate leadership does not look like, and that is $10 gas.
You know, people say, well, there's nothing that can be done to get these people to lose elections. We're a one-party state. They're a lock every time they put their name on the ballot. At $10 a gallon gasoline, voters might start to ask some questions.
California's clean air push facing pushback from both political parties.
And I love the idea that it's still a clean air push when the number one contributor to the emissions in the sky isn't even tailpipes anymore. It's wildfires by a lot. Wildfires, thanks to the mismanagement of people like Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass, have wiped out every single possible reduction we've had in emissions going back to the year 2000.
And you'd think with all of the benefits that you would receive from doing something about wildfires, not just the emissions that are going up into the sky and the atmosphere, but also the insurance crisis, the housing crisis, all the other problems that we have, You could kill many birds with one stone if you actually did something about that.
Lawmakers worry state regulators have kept drivers, workers, and Californians overall as an afterthought as 2 oil refiners prepare to shut down within the next year. Those 2 account for about 20% of the state's oil refining capacity.
We're talking about a plan when these companies leave and what happens to the land. I'm concerned about what happened to the people.
Lawmakers.
Yeah, pretty much this will destroy Benicia. There's nothing to do there afterwards.
Well, and don't act like they just decided to pick up and leave one day on their own. The California state legislature and the governor of California told them we don't want them here.
Lawmakers grilled the leaders of the state agencies that regulate the oil and gas industry, including California Air Resources Board Chair Leanne Randolph, Vice Chairman of the California Energy Commission Siva Gunda, and the Department of Petroleum Market Oversight Director Ty Milder.
Okay, why do we have 3 different commissions doing the exact same job?
Because it takes a lot of people to screw up an industry.
You wonder how our budget has grown $100 billion over the last 6 years? It's nonsense like this. 3 different commissions made up of Gavin Newsom appointees who are all making high salaries, making decisions that are destroying your life.
But they're doing it with equity in mind.
Let's not forget what the California Air Resources Board was doing last year when they passed those new clean fuel standards. Well, when you looked at what the clean fuel standards were, it was just an increase in the cap and trade fees, which then they turned around and said, we're going to use cap and trade money not only for high-speed rail, but vouchers for e-bikes.
Cap and trade is one big slush fund. It's just a money laundering scheme. And at this point, if anyone is unaware of that, they're not paying attention.
Including California Air Resources Board Chair Leanne Randolph, Vice Chairman of the California Energy Commission Siva Gunda, and the Department of Petroleum Market Oversight Director Ty Milder.
We have a crisis on our hand that may have been self-created.
Yep.
You don't say.
No
I love
other
the fact
state
that they're
is going through this.
They're just figuring it out now when this has been painfully obvious to everyone for many, many, many moons. And now it's like this big revelation up there. It's like, oh, Joe Biden's senile and we're screwing up our gasoline industry.
By the actions that perhaps have been taken by the state, by regulators.
Democratic Assemblyman David Alvarez and others frustrated after they were swayed to approve some of the latest regulations put on the oil and gas industry.
I think I also heard you say that another closure can lead to a significant increase in cost to consumers on the price of gas.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that he said it, it only works if you listen.
Gunda told lawmakers California will likely need to have oil imported from other parts of the world by ships.
How exactly is that good for the planet?
No, it's not. And it's also going to be more expensive because you have to pay for the shipping.
So we really have only one choice there today, which is, increasing imports. Based on our work right now, that will be very tight for the North.
Increase in imports, which means that you have more vessels who what I've heard also, if you increase the vessels, then that means more emissions because we don't control those vessels and the emissions at which they bring. Is that correct?
You are correct that additional marine traffic would implicate air quality issues beyond state waters that we do not regulate.
Aren't these people responsible for cleaning the air? They're actively making it dirtier around the world.
It's almost as if they haven't thought this through.
Now, this was just an informational hearing, so no action was taken.
Of course, that's why they can talk tough, because they're not going to do anything about this. Not while Gavin Newsom's governor.
Of course not. They're going to let gas get to $10 a gallon, and then they're going to blame the evil oil industry.
It's unclear exactly what the next steps will be, but Governor Newsom's administration is still apparently trying to come up with a plan to deal with those 2 upcoming refinery closures.
Yeah, well, those closures are coming closer every single day, and they're not doing a damn thing about it.
So this is what's going on right now in Sacramento regarding gasoline prices. At the same time, our attorney general who's supposed to be looking at many of these same subjects, is instead spending his time going after card clubs. Why? Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Nobody's sure who exactly asked for the Attorney General to start investigating this, but Ricardo Lara, for reasons unknown, wants to change the rules regarding card houses up and down the state. These are the legal casinos that you can play outside of tribal territories where you can play poker and blackjack and a few other games. You can't play slot machines, but they're up and down. If you go up and down the 710 freeway in Los Angeles, you got a whole bunch of them right there, including Commerce Casino and the Bike and, of course, Hawaiian Gardens.
Now, wait. You said Ricardo Lara. This is Rob Bonta, correct?
Excuse me. Rob Bonta is the one doing this. Yes.
Okay.
Rob Bonta, this guy.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
If the other jackass got involved, they'd lose their insurance, too.
For more on what the hell Rob Bonta is doing when it comes to card rooms, here is CBS 47 in Fresno.
The Attorney General's own economic impact came out and said, 50% of card room jobs could go away. It's going to be more than that. If you take away half our revenue here, we're going to go down more than that.
A proposal out of Sacramento could potentially stack the cards against local card rooms' bottom lines.
You know they had to do that.
I believe it is imperative that all new regulations be carefully considered for their economic impact.
The Attorney General's office began a statewide online hearing today to lay out Rob Bonta's proposal to alter how the businesses operate. To allow it to be considered a community game and make it legal under current California law, card rooms use third-party providers, also known as bankers, through the card room dealers.
Have you ever been to one of these casinos, Johnny?
I've been there when we did a remote from one of them at one point, but I've never actually gambled there.
So if you're at a $10 table for blackjack, the way that you make it legal is you actually spend $11 for every $10 hand, and that $1 goes to a banker who then, it's through the weird way the law was written to begin with, that somehow makes it legal to play.
I see.
It's the bankers who provide the chips to players and pay when a player wins.
We will contract with third-party players to come in here and actually keep the games moving.
But so maybe is what the thing Bonta doing streamlining this because that's nonsense? No.
I doubt it. If he's going after the card clubs, my guess is he is receiving contributions from their competitors, whether it is the Indian casinos, the Las Vegas casinos, or maybe, I don't know, someone involved with the state lottery.
But the Attorney General's new proposal would only allow bankers if they, too, are playing the game, something they don't do currently.
That's weird.
Of all of the subjects that he could be spending his time on, this is what he's getting knee-deep in.
The only reason that you go after this specific industry when there's nobody making a complaint about it is that you are getting funded by the opposition.
And keep in mind, this is a guy who came from the local political scene in Oakland, and his benefactors were the Dongs.
It slows down the game and makes it harder to play.
To separate themselves from the casino, bankers are not allowed to receive tips from players like a dealer can. The proposal would also outlaw most blackjack games.
Why?
I'm telling you, this guy is dirty, and there is something going on. There's some part of this story that we're unaware of that will explain all of it.
We can't play it anymore. We wouldn't be able to play blackjack games or variants of the games like the game of 21. We can't play that.
The million-dollar question, why is Bonta cracking down on local casinos?
There's no public complaint ever. I'm not aware of a single public complaint, and I haven't ever heard of one other than a tribal casino saying, hey, we don't want these guys to play.
Kirkland says
we have evidence in the past of Rob Bonta being a pay-for-play politician, including when he was in the assembly crafting legislation that specifically benefited the Dong family and California Waste Solutions. So this is his MO.
This guy is transactional. He wanted to be the next governor of California, and then Sheng got raided, and suddenly he decided he didn't want to run for governor anymore. I'm telling you, there is something seriously dirty going on with this guy.
Kirkland says the argument against his games are flawed. In the state's own analysis, the gaming sector could lose $198 million, and card rooms could lose $396 million if Bonta gets his way.
To the detriment of tens of thousands of California citizens.
Especially when card rooms provide substantial tax revenue for Fresno.
Aren't we in a budget shortfall up and down the state of California?
Think about this for a second. Think about the two stories we've done in this segment. These were industries that were healthy industries that employed a lot of people, that provided services for individuals in California, the oil industry and the gaming industry. And our politicians decided to destroy them randomly and then complain about the consequences.
We contribute $1 million a year into the City of Fresno General Fund.
The new way to play could end playing days altogether.
The big concern for us here is, our survival, because candidly, we don't survive without player-dealer games, and we don't survive without blackjack. And we have 180 people that work for us.
Jason Toktagian, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.
How's it going to look for Gavin Newsom or the California legislature and Rob Bonta himself? Because this is apparently something he can do unilaterally, is change these rules. I don't know how that works. But how's it going to look when you have several businesses up and down the state in places like urban areas like Los Angeles or rural areas like Fresno go out of business overnight?
It shouldn't be hard to figure out if this guy is receiving large sums of money from the Indian casinos, or if there is some affiliated PAC that is receiving large sums of money from the Indian casinos, and then just connect the dots. What Indian casino is near these card clubs in Fresno that the card clubs are competing with the Indian casinos? That should be the answer to the question. And how much do you want to bet whoever that is giving large sums of money to Rob Bonta?
Okay, here's something interesting, and this is odd because apparently in January of this year, there were questions raised after Rob Bonta took campaign contributions from the Bicycle Casino, which he had an open case investigating.
Oh, so maybe they weren't paying the bribes, and he decided to come down on them like a ton of bricks.
Oh, my goodness, that's it. That's exactly what this is.
If he tried to shake them down for money and said, pay me X or I'm going to investigate you, and I'm sure all of these clubs are dirty and violating all kinds of rules. So I'm sure if he wanted to, he could find something on them. It's like calling holding in the NFL. And if you don't pay the ransom, you get him breathing down your neck. It's just a theory. I'm not saying that happened for sure. It's my opinion that is a possibility of what could be going on here. But we know this guy is ethically challenged. We know that industry is ethically challenged. And none of what's going on right now makes any sense unless there is an element of immorality, let's call it, going on. Just another day. Just another day here in the insane asylum. During the commercial break, Randy, you did some researching on just exactly who is funding Rob Bonta's campaign.
This is wild. So Rob Bonta has been compromised since before becoming Attorney General and pretty much since day one. Look at this. You go back to the story that we referenced last segment about the Bicycle Casino in Los Angeles. Rob Bonta, within days of becoming Attorney General, 1 month into that job, got a $16,000 donation from the bike, and there was already an open investigation into a money laundering scheme going on at the bike that ended up getting the bike fined $500,000 by the IRS and the DHS. But Rob Bonta's office dropped their investigation.
Okay, so now it's starting to make more sense.
Not only that, there have been other situations where Rob Bonta has shown that he will do things for you if you contribute to his campaign. For instance, he got a $72,000 donation from Southern California Edison days before dropping charges against SoCal Edison for their culpability in the Woolsey fire.
How is it that you could accept donations from someone you're investigating?
It's so unbelievably unethical, but I'm sure it's legal somewhere in the way California's laws are written. But here's the fun one. It's not just the card rooms that have been funding Bonta's campaigns. This according to Cal Matters. Card rooms and tribal governments have been donating heavily to Rob Bonta since he took office as Attorney General in 2021. Since then, the card room industry has donated at least $287,000, and tribal governments have given him at least $222,000, assuming a lot of that money was going to his now non-existent campaign for governor.
In the national news of late, Donald Trump has issued a number of pardons, including to Todd and Julie Chrisley. And one of the reasons that he's been issuing pardons is some of these prosecutions have been politically motivated. And I know there's pushback going on all over the place. Most prosecutors play it straight. How dare you issue these pardons? Prosecutors are ethical people. And then you look at something like this, where this guy is just an ATM. You put money in, you get what you want. You take money out, you have problems. Many of these people don't play it straight. Just because someone is a prosecutor doesn't mean that justice is what they have in mind. They have an important title, they have a lot of power, and they can use that power to do what they want to do. And if the objective is justice, then great, that's the best case scenario. If the objective is to raise as much campaign money as possible to run for re-election and win, or run for higher office and win, you can really do damaging things.
Well, and if you look at all of those stories that we just talked about, his actions with the bike, his actions with SoCal Edison, let's not forget that the biggest contributor to Rob Bonta's campaigns over the years have been from Andy and David Dong, who are currently under indictment for the bribing incident with Sheng Tao and her boyfriend. That trial is going on right now, and you know there's no way possible that Bonta is not implicated when Sheng Tao eventually flips.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, here's another strange thing. No one out there on the streets, no one in any bar, in any diner in California has strong feelings about the card rooms. Maybe the people who work there do. Maybe the people who are in management or ownership there do. Maybe the people who live in the same neighborhood as the card clubs do. And maybe the customers do. But outside of that tiny population of people, nobody cares about those card rooms. For the Attorney General to be spending his time laser focused on that industry leads you to believe that there are other motivations at play. And then when you look at these numbers, it would be impossible to ignore the connection. All right, so that's what's going on with California's Attorney General, Rob Bonta. And right now, Randy, it's time to open up the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition, I know, is going to be a good one because the narration is provided by the one and only Ed Lascos.
John, we actually have a special treat for you because you happened to be out yesterday doing jury duty. We have 2 days in a row worth of Ed Lascos Crime Blotter stories.
Well, we're lucky.
And you know what? I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12. I have 15 different Ed Lascos drops on the wall.
How crazy is that?
Well, the man provides a lot of great material.
Let's start first by going to the Santa Clarita Valley, where catalytic converter thieves are so brazen they're doing it at 6 o'clock in the morning. Ed, take it away.
The LA County Sheriff's Department is handling the investigation on this. Up to a half dozen vehicles targeted and hit over just an hour span in the early morning of Sunday during that long holiday weekend. And you would think the crooks would cover their tracks under the cover of darkness. Strike when it's dark? Think again.
He's the best.
They should think again.
That is one of his catchphrases.
Watch. They pull up, spot their target, and it's on right in broad daylight.
I'm not going to say that I'll go so far as that I'm rooting for crime to happen so I can hear Ed Lasko's narrate it. But boy, I enjoy these.
And it gets even crazier than that. They pull up, spot their target, and it's on right in broad daylight. It makes no difference.
My wife is in front of the house having her morning coffee, and these people just drive up and think they could just, take what's not theirs.
In broad daylight.
Broad daylight.
They're not scared about doing their dirty work in broad daylight, but they are scared of this.
I called out for my husband because he was sound asleep upstairs. I was like, babe, they're after your truck or the van, get the gun, come down quick. And
oh, boy.
Boy, they're ready for action.
Well, and this is incredibly dangerous, too, because we saw what happened in Inglewood just a few months ago, where there were brazen catalytic converter thieves stealing catalytic converters from a neighborhood. Someone just happened to walk upon it. He tried to intervene, and they shot him dead.
Yeah, you got to be real careful with these people, because when word gets out that the cops and the DAs don't care if you break the law, it's real easy to up the ante. And if you keep upping the ante and you got a gun on you, you're not afraid to use it.
I think I startled him. One of the guys popped his head out, looked directly at me.
And look how fast they hightail it after hearing there's a gun, but the damage already done.
Hey, that rhymed.
Maybe he could be mayor of L.A.
Oh, he'd get my vote.
The catalytic converter from this work van is long gone.
Wait, is that how you pronounce it?
Wait.
Because I thought it was something else.
And the catalytic converter from
Hugo.
Let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
Thank you for the clarification.
The catalytic converter from this work van is long gone, but the safety concerns, they're still here.
I'm worried about the safety of my family. If I'm at work, is that going to happen again? The fact that she was in front of the house and she had the confrontation with them, it's a very scary feeling.
This security video from early Sunday morning, a long holiday weekend, but there's no holiday for crumbs like this.
Can you imagine if he went to one of the networks and we got that on the nightly news every night?
I'm not used to this term, but I like it.
There's no holiday for crumbs like this.
Crumbs.
And you think my terminology's old?
Is crumb like a mesh together of criminal and scumbag?
Based on how he used it, it sounds like it is.
They had already hit 5 people before they hit us. So they had started like 6:45 in the morning in this neighborhood, and they were just cruising down and looking at all the possible cars that they could steal the catalytic converters from.
That's the sound of the catalytic crooks in action as the L.A. County Sheriff's Department and LAPD, both with their task forces, all trying to shut down this crime wave while all the innocent victims are caught right in the middle.
Where does it balance out?
By the way, Art looked this up. Crumb can refer to a worthless or despicable person.
Well, sounds like he used it correctly then.
Love it.
Where does it balance out? Where is our state stepping up and protecting the citizens that are paying and law-abiding?
Well, we're not doing any of that.
No. It sounds like this woman probably voted the right way. Usually when we do these stories and people are complaining about the condition of the state, you can tell they voted for all the problems. But this woman sounds like she was onto it a long time ago.
Santa Clarita, a little more moderate than the rest of L.A. County. Husband has a gun. I think you might be right.
Yes.
And I think that's where my frustration is right now.
So there you go. Catalytic converter thieves brazenly stealing them up and down a street in Santa Clarita. They get chased away when she screams, "Hey, my husband has a gun."
I guess that's what you have to do to get him to leave. And it sounds like she didn't give him bad information. But right now, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, as you indicated before, we have not one, but two Ed Laskos reports today.
Let's see if we get another drop. Now I'm up to 16.
There's no holiday for crumbs like this.
By the way, someone emailed us during the break. Eric, he wanted all 15 drops sent to him as an MP3, and I did it, including this one.
About a suspect not armed with a gun or a knife, but lighter fluid and not afraid to torch anything.
This time we're going to Simi Valley, Johnny, where a professional robbery crew cut a hole in a neighboring building to a jewelry store so they could cut a hole into the safe and steal millions of dollars worth of jewels.
And Simi Valley, unlike most of Los Angeles, is a relatively safe city. It's a safe community. But I guess the crime spreads even to Ventura County.
In fact, Simi Valley is where a lot of LAPD officers live because they can't afford to live in Los Angeles, or they don't want to.
I think it's the latter.
For more, here's Fox 11 and Ed Laskos.
Well, tonight a family is devastated after a burglary suspect went to great lengths to rob their safe without even stepping into their small business. And the only image we have of the suspect shows him slithering on the floor in a coffee shop next door.
Hey, that rhymed.
She could be mayor of Los Angeles.
Susan Hirasuna, you ready?
Let's go now live to Ed Laskos in Simi Valley to explain how, indeed, that these crooks were able to pull this off.
Yeah, it's really, Susan, like the latest MO we've been seeing from these daring jewelry thieves. They're not smashing through the windows of the security gates like the smash and grabbers we see. Instead, they're cutting their way through the walls. In this case, this is the store right next to the jewelry store, Candy Coffee Shop. They come down through the roof.
So they cut a hole in the roof of a coffee shop that's next door to a jewelry store, and then they cut a hole in the wall and cut through all the concrete to get to the safe.
This sounds like, outside of stealing a Hyundai or a Kia and driving through the wall, one of the most destructive ways you can rob a store.
Through the wall, 6-8 inches of concrete. They cut through that, and bang, they're inside the jewelry store. Let's get to the video, this security video, and there is what you're talking about, Susan. There is this, well, he looks like a cat burglar here, crawling on his hands and knees.
Gotta stay under the radar.
Right through on the ground, and then he gets up and he spray paints a security camera. But the cat burglar, more like a chiseler, because he chisels his way. He and another thief. Right.
He was going to say something worse.
Yeah, he was, and it wasn't crumb.
Chisels his way. He and another thief.
Oh, I can't get enough.
Right through that concrete wall into the jewelry store, but not into the jewelry store itself, but into the safe. They went into the side of the safe, cut their way in that way. So all of this happened.
You know what's honestly, the last few years have shown us companies that sell safes need to do a much better job.
Yeah, it sounds like they're just for decoration.
Whether it's you use a stolen Kia to rip one out of a store, or use a sledgehammer to break it open, or who knows what the hell happened to Karen Bass's gun safe where her 2 guns were supposed to be, or this jewelry safe that apparently you can just torch your way through. These products are not nearly strong enough for today's criminals.
Now, in the movies, if you're watching a heist on Ocean's 11 or something like that, don't they have those lasers that go across the room where if you break one of those lasers, the cops get notified?
I think that might just be in the movies.
I see.
All of this happened overnight. They used the long extended holiday weekend to give them cover. So it started very early.
Yeah, this isn't a quick job. This isn't in and out. This took them hours upon hours.
If you have the time and the ingenuity to do this, can't you find honest employment?
They got like millions of dollars.
That's true.
Very early Sunday night into Monday. Took them several hours. And so Monday, when the folks open up their jewelry store, they think they survived. They were not hit because the safe isn't open. It's still locked. It's still sealed. And then they found out they really were targeted. Listen.
He was standing at the safe with his hands on the safe with a look of relief over his face, like, oh, they didn't get anything. And I looked at him, I said, open the safe. He said, it's fine. We didn't get anything. They didn't get anything. It's fine. And then I just kept screaming, open the safe, open the safe. And when he opened the safe,
he knew.
It was empty.
I just kept screaming, open the safe, open the safe. And when he opened the safe, it was empty, and there was a hole leading into my neighbor's business. Every precaution, we have a 5,000-pound safe bolted to the ground. Like, there's literally nothing more as far as diligent we can't be any more diligent than what we are. It's
only protection of God that will help us.
You know what this is going to end up doing? This is going to make the jewelry industry uninsurable.
Well, if you're the insurance company, you're going to say, well, you obviously didn't do enough.
Now, a lot of that's his dad there saying, you hear what he said, only the protection of God can help them at this point. And that's why a lot of these jewelry stores are feeling that they're scratching their heads saying, what more can they do? All the usual security measures. But now the thieves have found another way to come down through the roof, tunnel their way in, or cut their way in through the existing wall. The search is on here now. They're looking for at least 2 of these jewelry thieves. And this jewelry heist, Susan, now into the millions of dollars.
There you go. That's the latest. 2 different Ed Laskos crime stories.